Hi, I'm Brian Jackson, editor of ITBusiness.ca, and today I'm joined by Steve Van Binsbergen for Google Hangout. Steve is the Vice President of Business Marketing at Rogers Communications. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, and here's Steve. Just introduce yourself again there, Steve, so everyone can see you.
Oh, hi, Steve Van Binsbergen with Rogers. Nice to be here.
Okay, thanks. A few glitches in our Hangouts today, but anyway, the reason we're talking to Steve is because he's got a great technique, his own very own method for collaborating between CIOs and CMOs. That's definitely a topic that we discuss a lot on ITBusiness.ca, and I know it's really of interest to a lot of people, and it's great to hear how it's done at different organizations, and especially when we have people that have experience with it and they've got to the level where they have their own techniques, their own methodology that they have tested themselves and have seen as being successful. I think there's a lot to learn from that. So, Steve, I'm really looking forward to what you have to tell us today. And I'm going to start with a simple question of why do you think it's even important that the CIO and CMO work together, and why is that relevant at your company, Rogers?
Well, I think it's absolutely relevant because if they're not working and collaborating together, then obviously the business is not going to get moved forward. What we've seen in the past is IT was always sort of this organization off to the side doing whiz-bang technology things and sort of keeping things behind the dark background. In today's age, there are things that are changing that are driving both CMOs and CIOs to work a lot more collaboratively together, which we can get into whenever you're ready. What I found is interesting is, I mean, maybe there's two things happening. If you look at it from the CMO's perspective, there's a huge focus on transforming those individuals to almost CXOs, customer experience focused people. And the big element there is that as CMOs try to engage more effectively with their customer base, guess what? They've got to embrace digital, they've got to embrace social, they've got to embrace tools like the one we're using today. And things just are a lot different. Those things have a lot more technology basis than they used to. It's not like you put an ad on TV anymore. You're now communicating with customers through digital, direct mail, and email, and other kinds of things. So huge impact on technology. But I think what's more important is that those poor CIOs have actually evolved more than the CMOs, to be honest. I think they've gone from being sort of, pardon the language, technology geeks or dweebs to really fully embracing the business priorities. And as they've gotten seats at the executive table, as they've embraced the business priorities, they've become part of the solution instead of where they were in the past as somewhat part of the problem. So I think in that having CMOs and CIOs both at the executive table has also massively increased the collaboration level between the two.
Right, and the other part that I wanted to get in there is how it's relevant for you at Rogers.
Yeah, well, let me use, and I don't know if my screen is visible here.
Yeah, I can see it pretty well.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see it, but on it is data from IDC. On the left-hand side of the chart, it shows that where IT organizations are spending their time and their money, they're spending 79%, call it 80% of their time and money on what I'd call keeping the lights on. So essential software and infrastructure systems. So by definition, CIOs are focusing a lot of their energy on band-aiding old systems, legacy systems, and which really leaves only 20% of their time to focus on innovation. What's happened, though, is that based on the fact that we're moving to the digital world, applications can be built for tens of thousands of dollars. A lot of the business units are starting to move towards building applications and driving innovation on their own because they can do it very easily. And so I think this is what's driving the IT organizations to become more focused on the business side of things. And frankly, they're ending up collaborating. Now, we're working with a lot of IT organizations to try to free up some of that spend by helping them modernize their communication capabilities, which then they can turn into more innovation. So turning that into Rogers, how's that working at Rogers? Well, you know, in many ways, we are our own petri dish of living the life of what our customers are trying to live. So as we actually have worked in the B2B side of Rogers as the guinea pigs for a lot of the new technologies like Microsoft Link and Office 365, moving towards the web, collaboration tools, and all those kinds of things. And IT's actually partnered with us and allowed us to be the guinea pigs to test out the new technology, work out the kinks, in order that then they can go and deploy across the organization. So it's been a nice kind of partnership because we want to live the values.
Yeah, that's always nice when you hear a company is eating its own dog food. But now that we've heard about how you're approaching it, I think we can get right into your method. And, it's going to be interesting. So you have this secret to unlock the collaborative potential between a CIO and CMO. So, Steve, what is it? What's the secret?
Well, I'm not sure if there's particular amounts of secrets, but you know, uh, one of the ways that we've kind of looked at this is again through how the organizations are prioritizing the business requirements in moving forward. And as many people know, we have a new CEO here at Rogers, and he's been very effective at helping our organization prioritize where we're going in our business evolution. So what ends up happening is when we get alignment between those two different organizations, like Rome wasn't built in a day. You're not going to completely overhaul your back-end systems in a day, in a year, in 2 years. But as you take a look at prioritizing what's the most important, and the prioritization in this case is being driven based on what's important for our customers. And so if you're prioritizing what's important for our customers from a customer experience standpoint, then we can prioritize how we evolve the back end. And frankly, if it's built on a multi-year plan, you can say, here's where we want to be 3 years from now, but we're going to do it in 5 different steps, and we're going to prioritize it based on what's going to drive the best value for our customers. So it's kind of this holistic, centralized planning, and then deployment kind of to that kind of playbook, call it.
Okay, interesting. So take us through that a bit and break down the processes. What's the first step for you to establishing this sort of rapport where the CIO and CMO can speak the same language?
Well, I think some of it ends up being top-down, frankly, mandated from the top. But I think other parts of, like I mentioned before, I think CIOs themselves have done a huge service in most of the CIOs that I'm talking to are significantly different or have even evolved from where they were 5, 10, 15 years ago. Like I said, in the past, their whole world was technology, and it was all about kind of this, keeping a shroud of secrecy around what they're doing. They're all sitting at the executive table now, and again, it's really collaborating as part of an executive team to determine what the company's priorities are, and that's really the first step. So where do we want to go? Who do we want to be? What are the priorities to getting there? And then that starts to roll into how do we go and execute against it.
Do you think it's somebody's job to establish that relationship? Is it, who should take the first move if, let's say, the CEO doesn't do it? Is it the CIO's job, or does the CMO have to reach out to make that happen?
Well, I think it happens in many different ways. Again, I think that the CMOs are relying on the CIOs to be able to help them understand and wade through that evolving digital world. You hear a lot today about the consumerization of IT. In many ways that is deployed in how the customer base interacts and works with the organization. So in our case, whether it's the consumer side of our business or the B2B side of our business, we're continuing to evolve the way that we communicate with our customers and using digital, social, and other kinds of formats. So in many ways, the CMO is going to reach out to the CIO and say, here are our priorities as to how we need to move our business forward. Can you help me? But at the same time, I've seen many CIOs who realize that, back to the stuff I was showing on the screen, they're spending 80% of their time focused on keeping the lights on. If they don't get with the program of driving innovation, they're going to be relegated to kind of the back, no pun intended, the back office, and irrelevancy in the organization. So in many cases, they're stepping up to embrace the business requirements and drive their agenda to demonstrate the value that they're bringing to the organization.
So, Steve, you're coming at this from the marketing line of business.
Yes.
That's your job at Rogers. How do you think manage your relationship with your CIO differently from what other vice presidents of marketing might do at other organizations?
Well, I think, I think a lot of it has to do with personality more than anything. I'm more of a collaborative kind of person. So, the eating our own dog food being the petri dish for innovation, that's kind of been our approach, which is really to reach out to our peers in IT and say, we realize that you've got an organization of 30,000 people that you need to move from older technology to newer technology. We're willing to step forward and be the guinea pigs for this in order to help you guys work out the challenges. So it's kind of a win-win situation where we get to get on the bleeding edge of the technology, and they have an opportunity to work with a bunch of folks that are actually willing to embrace the technology and to work through the challenges with them. So I think that excuse me, that collaboration approach tends to work very effectively with us. I've seen other peers in the industry take the blunt instrument type of approach, escalate up the organization and pound them into submission. I don't think that's a great way to do it.
Yeah, probably not. I wonder, it's always interesting to hear about how challenges are overcome. And if you could think about some disagreements that you've had with your CIO maybe, and how did you work through those? That would be really great. Can you think of anything like that?
Yeah, actually, I have a great example. I won't mention names or products, but it's one of those, how do you get to the right spot? And we had an onboarding process that took more time than it really should, and we were trying to dramatically reduce the cycle time to bring benefit to both our customers, meaning that we could get them on board faster, and frankly to our own organization, because then we could drive to cash a lot faster. And we sat down with IT and had some trouble trying to get IT to understand our challenge. If we re-engineered our process, we could only get about halfway there. And so they were sort of stuck in the old systems and re-engineering process and so on. And so we ended up going out and finding a third-party company that could actually completely break the old process and take us to an absolutely short cycle time, and introduce that to our IT team. And not surprisingly, they weren't very happy about that. But what it did was it opened up the conversation to say, why is it that we are trying to get to that sort of cycle time? Why is it relevant for our business, and why is it relevant for our customers? And as they gained a deeper understanding as to what we were trying to accomplish, and then talk through why it was that our current systems wouldn't get us there, not surprisingly, they actually got on board and then started to participate in the process. And then what we did, I think, which worked out well, was then we handed it back to them to do the requirements definition and to follow the normal kind of ownership process so that they could be a part of us solving that solution. So we kind of poked the bear with a bit of a sharp stick, but ultimately collaborated and let them play their role in trying to get us to the conclusion of that.
Yeah, I think what was so important there is that even though you went outside of the organization and found a third-party provider that sort of had what you needed, you wanted to put that into place, instead of just going ahead and doing it with your own budget, which I've heard of other people doing in different circumstances, and then they go back to their IT guy after the budget's been spent and the money is out there, and the IT guy says, oh, sorry, it's not secure enough, or it doesn't meet our standards, and you just wasted all of that budget because we can't use this as a business.
Yeah, and particularly in large organizations like ours, at the end of the day, you can definitely develop point solutions that operate in a vacuum. At some point, you're going to need to integrate into the rest of the systems that are in the company, and if you haven't engaged IT in the process, you're going to run into a brick wall.
Yeah, good to keep that in mind. So another unique thing about Rogers, and you're on the B2B side, I guess. And Rogers also, of course, has a huge B2C business. And I wonder if you can talk to about the unique challenges that might be faced by executives that are trying to collaborate on both those sides of the fence. You know, what different sort of things come up on the B2B side of the business as opposed to the B2C side of the business?
With respect to us and our IT colleagues, or with respect to the customers that we're trying to reach?
Yeah, when you're working with your IT colleagues.
Yeah. Well, I think as you look at some of the different challenges, we're obviously part of this concept of eating your own dog food that you brought up is really about trying to live the experience that our customers live. And so, what's sometimes easy to forget is that we work for a large corporation in the same way that we're trying to sell to those large corporations, and the challenges that we face day to day on budgets and people prioritization and resources and all that kind of stuff and bureaucracy, because it exists in all organizations, that exists in our customer organizations too. So for us, all the things I talked about previously are really about part of it's about how we get it done in our own organization. Part of it's how we can better help our customers follow the journey in their organization. So likewise, on the consumer side, it's a little bit different because the consumer side of our business is really dealing with individuals and dealing with different channels of distribution and retail stores and online and how people like to be served and so on. So it's a little bit of a different process. We talked earlier about that the CMO's challenges about moving to the digital world, the social world. There's huge amounts of costs in our business serving our customers via old-fashioned telephones in our customer care organization. So as we move to a world where people are buying online, researching online, getting service online, communicating, getting information, the organization is more focused on how do we live in that modernizing world on a one-to-one basis, and how do we drive the customer experience up while driving our own costs down. And that's and what's really wonderful about the new technology is you can actually do that. If you think about it, there are lots more people that love to get the service online, and it actually saves us money doing that. It's kind of another win-win situation.
That's great. Okay. So if you were to give advice to another business that wanted to have that great relationship between their executives and sort of use your approach of collaboration where you're talking through these processes together and keeping the customer at the front and center of what you're trying to achieve, and really understanding at a deep level what each department is trying to contribute towards that goal, how can other businesses take what you've learned and try and implement some of those lessons for themselves?
Well, I think if I was to summarize some of the points through this conversation, it's set common priorities, set a common goal or a common objective as to where you want to end up, how you want to position yourself as a company, how you want customers to see you and work with you. Then set a list of priorities as to how you're going to get there, with the most customer impacting ones first and down the list. Ensure you have buy-in, and then ensure you engage across the organization, making sure that the IT organization does the part that they have to do, and the marketing organization does what they have to do, and the both are collaborating together.
That's great, Steve. Thanks so much for walking us through this and telling us all about your secrets for CIO, CMO collaboration. I know that a lot of people will think they're really helpful today.
Great, thank you. Happy to be a part of it.
So again, we were speaking with Steve Van Binsbergen. He's the Vice President of Business Marketing at Rogers Communications. And I'm Brian Jackson, editor of ITBusiness.ca. Come on back to www.itbusiness.ca, and you'll find lots more content about CIO, CMO collaboration, and lots more Hangouts to watch, just like this one. Thanks a lot.